This is a presentation for Joseph Da Silva for EDL 851, Module 8, Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. I'm not going to bore you with long summaries of the same readings that we all had to cover. Basically, the Every Student Succeeds Act gives the states the responsibility and authority of creating and implementing teacher evaluations, which they can then pass off to local districts. For court cases, there were a bunch of court cases referred to in this article, and while some hadn't been resolved when the article was written, for example, Lederman versus King was shown as in progress, but actually it resulted in a win for the teacher. Essentially, these cases just upheld the structures laid out in the ESSA, such as states can create evaluation systems, but those systems have to be valid, which is actually what was tested in Lederman. Other cases are still pending even after a year or two since the article was published. A couple of these cases address the common concerns about teachers who get good kids. Teachers who get good kids are going to have better data than those that teach ELL, English language learners, high poverty students, or students with special needs, all of which statistically have lower test scores and have slower growth rates. It would be interesting to see how this all pans out, because my fellow teachers and I have talked about the same kind of thing throughout the years, ever since the race to the top had been starting to be implemented in Maryland. Okay, so the summary of teacher evaluation. This article had some interesting statistics. First, I thought it was interesting that it showed that, there was a study that showed that 99% of teachers from 12 districts were rated as satisfactory, which totally blows away the idea of a bell curve and suggests that experience doesn't actually make you better. If 99% of teachers are all satisfactory, then no matter if you're a starting teacher or an ending year teacher, or you've got 30 years under your belt, you're all going to be satisfactory 99 out of 100 times. The other statistic that caught my attention was that the best teachers can cover over a year's worth of learning in a single year, while the worst teachers will cover less than a year's worth of learning in the same period. This reminds me of a quote from a principal that I used to have, who talked about the teachers have a moral responsibility because doing a bad job can affect a student's life for years to come. All right. The article also demonstrated that teachers' unions don't much like the new systems, which might be because there's no evidence that these changes have improved anything. All right, so now I'll talk about the Anne Arundel County Public Schools evaluation model. In AACPS, teacher evaluations have three parts. They have observations, the SLOs, which are just a value-added model using pre-test, post-test data, and the third part is a school-wide goal. This has been the most contentious in my district, for example. This last one has been the most contentious in my district. For example, tech ed teachers don't want to be evaluated on how well, quote unquote, Johnny improved in reading. However, the schools and districts make a compelling argument, which is, school goals like reading and math are concepts that are essentially can be integrated into various curriculums and also there's the argument that when there's cross-curricular instruction, learning tends to stick better and scores go up. This is just a visual breakdown of how the different components are weighted. So what happens when you have a bad evaluation? First, the district wants to avoid lots of paperwork and hassle, so the principals are encouraged to do more observations or create alternative ways to assess teacher capacity so that teachers don't end up having bad evaluations at the end of the year. But let's say that that's not happening or working. The teachers can choose to go through the union, which actually we have associations in Maryland, not unions. And though the association can get support to appeal and get your work reviewed by someone else, usually pushed if the teacher thinks they're being unfairly targeted. The other options is a CAP, or a collaborative assistance plan. This is where the teacher, an administrator, and some sort of instructional leader lay out goals and various ways to assist the teacher at improvement. Then you try again next year. If all of this If after all of this you're still not improving, then then there will be a recommendation for dismissal. However, usually by this time teachers have just left and it's somebody else's problem. Sort of the dance of the lemons. So we were asked to cite a court case. So I found a recent one in Maryland. Basically, the teacher went through a process like the one in AACPS. It was through Montgomery County Public Schools, but they stuck around. Instead of trying to leave, they stuck around and tried to fight it. And in the end, they got fired. Basically, because the county did go through all the methods and effort to better the teacher, better instruction, and still the teacher did not improve. So after all the support, after the due process, the teacher still lost his job. This begs the question, at what point, as a future administrator, how can I help protect myself from these kind of lawsuits or legal implications? In Maryland, I don't know, every district that I've seen in Maryland has a very large, well-funded legal affairs office. So every district, if principals are encouraged to call the legal affairs office if there ever tends to be something that may come up. And this doesn't have to be just about teacher evaluation, but it could be student issues, it could be staff-student issues, it could be whatever it is, whether it's funding or special ed or IEPs or all the other issues that come up in education. The administrators are encouraged to contact that legal office. That's it for me. I hope this presentation was at least moderately interesting, and have a good day.